gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the We Are Change talk show. Thank you for joining me. It's Christmas time, though for many people it's a struggle to be merry, with Dan Andrews being re-elected. Reports of a rigged election with the World Economic Forum playing a key role in the outcome. Though we mustn't be too downhearted. Many fines for breach of Chief Health Officer's directives have been overturned, and those that have paid fines are looking at receiving a full reimbursement, which is a victory. I'm always looking to contribute and give back where I can, so this Christmas I'm accepting interview requests, which brings me to today's show, where I'll be speaking with Michael Justin Reed, who has a series of questions he would like to ask. So let's cross over to that now. So any questions that you find relevant, yes, be sure to ask away.
Okay, so you're speaking mostly from the perspective of in Australia, and you're living in Australia right now. And I noticed you did something earlier about, I believe the issue you were trying to address was like freedom of speech and stuff like that. So what was all that about?
We really suffered.
Really?
There was restrictions put on people here in Victoria, how far they could travel, and many journalists had their right to record and film protests violated. The way that we were conducting was very professional, but the police were brutal in their operations. I myself was slammed on the concrete for simply reporting on matters of public interest. So there's many occasions here where I've been doing my job as a journalist and police have intercepted and hindered my activities. So I was charged with 6 counts of breach of Chief Health Officer's directives. And recently I pled not guilty to all 6 of those charges. I faced the Melbourne Magistrates Court here in Victoria, Australia. And the prosecution made a deal and offered a diversion. So there was no conviction recorded, and an agreement made to where I write a letter of gratitude to the one that offered that diversion and make a donation to a charity as a way of rectifying that. Recently, there has been news here in Australia. All of the breach of Chief Health Officer's directives were in fact unlawful, so they had no right to issue those charges, and many have been thrown out, and people that have paid their fines are looking at being reimbursed. So that's a victory here in Australia.
Okay, so initially, I guess kind of backtrack a little bit. So initially, you were addressing the lockdown situation. So the lockdowns were because of COVID or what?
That's right. So we had lockdowns because of that, which are a violation of the Biosecurity Act. Quarantining healthy people goes against that. So we were being attacked mercilessly from many different angles. Restrictions put on movement. People denied the right to frequent businesses unless they showed relevant documents. And yes, we really faced a lot of tyranny here. It was the beta test for the New World Order, many have called it. And we've seen armored vehicles going through the city. People who, like myself, have been shot at, rubber bullets, tear gas, pepper spray, arrests. It was.
So how recent was this?
This was pretty much the last 2 years. They've eased off.
It's ongoing.
Yeah, they've eased off recently during the elections, but yes, it has been a very dreadful ordeal. We've seen elderly people sprayed and attacked. They've really shown No remorse about it either. It's
Wow.
it's been very shocking. So a very difficult time here in Australia. Our freedom of speech has definitely been threatened.
Wow. So I guess trying to paint a picture, like in Australia, where would you think the country as a nation? I mean, because I know very little about Australia and where it stands, like in the political, sense. So what is it like over there for someone who lives there? Like what would you call the current political and government type of situation? How would
Well,
you
that's a
sum that
good
up?
question. We have a ruthless dictator here, Premier Dan Andrews, and he was
Dan Andrews.
recently, yes, he was re-elected, and reports have been discussed here that the World Economic Forum played a key role in his re-election and the outcome of this, overseeing the count and a lot of corruption involved. So he has very much been ruthless towards the people here. And there's been many protests. People have come together to try and rally against the tyranny that we've all faced. But yes, another 4 years under his reign, a lot of people find that very difficult to come to terms with. Many are looking at leaving the state of Victoria and trying to head to safer ground because, yes, it's definitely unpredictable times that we're living in here.
Wow. Wow.
Yes,
Okay.
we've had many protests here, and the government has resorted to extreme lengths to try and deter people protesting. We've seen the use of chemtrails being sprayed, the long range acoustic devices that have been
I,
used. We've seen
I've been
sound
hearing more and more
weapons.
about the chemtrails thing. That's I haven't dove much into that, but man, think I'm about to. So okay, so what did you say the it's a prime minister over there? Did you say that?
We have the Premier, Dan Andrews, in
Dan
Victoria.
Andrews.
That's
So
right.
like on the political spectrum, where would you say that he's at? Is he like far left, far right? Or how would you put him?
Definitely left and, yeah, very uh, evil. There's no other way to pretty much describe this person. The way he has been relentless towards his attacks and showing no compassion to the suffering of people here in Australia. We have many people that have taken their own lives because of the actions of this Premier, and it's simply unacceptable. And all hope has been dashed recently with the elections. Having this person back in power, many cannot fathom what is to come.
Yeah, every time I do talk to someone from another country and they get to talking about the way things are politically over there, it always sounds so much like same shit we got going on over here.
Mm.
I mean, I know you've probably, I mean, you may have heard some of the stuff. The thing with the police, that's a big issue over here, and that is a real weird one for me because I really try to be like stand behind the police. You know what I mean? Because I do believe in what they are supposed to represent. But the thing is, people with too much power and authority, sometimes, man, they can't handle it. I mean, it seems most of the time. I stay very disappointed in our leaders because it just doesn't seem that they care the least bit about the people. They seem so detached. I mean, they're living lives nothing like the average person. They know nothing about how the average people live. And then they have the audacity to stand in front of us on TV and tell us what the people want. You know what I mean? It's like I don't who are you talking to? I mean, nobody I know wants that shit. And and then all the while just getting filthy rich, filthy rich off the people, from their donors and their foundations. It's so I mean, I still manage to drag myself to a voting booth, but I often, when I get there, I kind of wonder why I should just like, look, why don't we just go kick all their asses instead of voting? It's just like, we're really being used right here, you know?
Yes, and that's a natural reaction to the situation. And well said. A lot of the powers, they seem to be intoxicated by
Mhm.
some of the what they've been given those powers. See, we had the state of emergency at play here, and we had authorized officers giving people directions, authorized officers that were given state of emergency powers, and they could enter people's homes without search warrants. We've seen the abuse of conduct within many officials here. The power went to their head, and it's uncontrollable, some of their behavior, and unacceptable. They need to be held accountable for this as well.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, when you hurt people, I mean, our government, in my opinion, is not supposed to turn on its own people. You know what I mean? But so like over here in the States, we got like there's a big like movement to defund the police and stuff like that. Do y'all ever have anything like that over there?
Yes, well, that's good. We need similar initiatives here because the police brutality has been really off the charts, and
Right.
the whole reputation of the police force is tarnished. It will take many years to repair. We've seen the
I agree.
elderly thrown on the ground, and people have lost their businesses because of the tactics that have been imposed. They've really used a lot of thuggish tactics to try and
Right.
intimidate people. And it
Mm-hmm.
can be compared to World War II style scenarios where people have stopped in the streets. They demand papers be shown and rights and liberties are restricted. And some of them, like you said, they get off on this power. It really
Sure.
definitely goes to their head. It's intoxicating. They're on a power trip, and we need to definitely put a stop to that. There needs to be measures put in place so we never see the actions of these police again in the way that we've been shown.
Right. You know, and I've heard arguments for both sides, and I don't know what's the best thing to do because a lot of people scream defund the police, but I also hear, you know, like an opposing argument that I can't help but to consider because it is one thing I can say the police officers, like your local law enforcement, whether sheriff's department, your constables, city police officers, they're actually very undertrained, honestly, to be doing what they're doing. They don't know how to properly de-escalate situations. They don't communicate with people. Right. I mean, the thing is, they're public servants. They are supposed to be there for us, you know. And I think, well, I mean, once you put that badge and that gun on some people, man, they just, and that's where I kind of wonder: should we defund them or should we fund them properly? But something definitely needs to change. I do agree that there's, I mean, these cops. I mean, I don't know about some people, man, but when I see like like a completely just overweight, useless police officer, I'm just like I'm kind of disappointed as a taxpayer, you know, because I am. It kind of disappoints me, you know what I mean? The way uh, the way law enforcement works nowadays, it's like they have such nice equipment. I will say that. I mean, money is being spent, but I mean, it like they have all these computers, you know, shit like that. Like if they pull up to a scene and they see bad guys run off, it's just like they're never going to get out and chase them on foot. They're just going to be like, you know, beep, 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 you know, like type, 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 type. And, you know, they're going to have helicopters. They're going to be, you know, whatever. Like nobody's going to get out and do nothing. Like nobody knows no kung fu. I mean, they just they're on a power trip and they don't a lot of times don't deserve it. And I know there's probably good ones. I know there's good ones, but for the most part, yeah, they're a little out of control. I will say that for sure.
They certainly are. That's why we have to always have cameras ready, mobile phones charged up, ready to film the conduct
Sure.
of these officers while
That's like
they
our best defense nowadays is to make them be held accountable for their actions. I agree. I can get on board with that for sure.
yeah, exactly. While they're executing their line of duty, we must, yes, always film them, because then that puts them in a position where they have to uphold the law to an
Sure.
extent, at least to some degree. However, I've had police interfere with my camera, switch it off while I'm recording. That's a evident sign of guilt, that they don't want to be filmed while they're doing their duty, because it goes to show that their criminal actions, they don't want to be recorded in the process of that. The police brutality, the intimidation. We see a lot of them reluctant to relinquish any personal information regarding their name or badge number. They try and go to lengths to try and obscure anyone's vision from seeing those numbers. That's all.
Right.
That's all
Sure.
signs of guilt, and the
Yeah.
unfair police tactics. I've suffered unimaginable forms of harassment. Multiple police and detectives turning up at my door. Series of questions relating to protests, my movements, my plans for future events and rallies. They've showed up at my doorstep with printouts from the We Are Change Melbourne Instagram page, photos of me while I'm working and reporting on matters, interviewing people that have suffered and those that are in distress. I've spoken to many that have suffered immensely, and the mental health system has really been overburdened here. We see
Sure.
depression,
Here too. Yep.
anxiety. It
Sure.
really takes its toll. And when we've seen people isolated inside their own homes, yes, that led to a lot of suffering as well, being restricted from family members and friends,
Right.
and denying people the right to see loved ones in their final days, go to attend funerals, weddings. All of this was stopped, during this whole time. So we've experienced enormous pain here, and it'll take a long time, if that's even possible, for people to recover.
So just out of curiosity, like what is, like here in the States, we got our, like First Amendment, of course, is all about the freedom of speech. What specifically, just out of curiosity, is your rights to things like freedom of speech and freedom of press and stuff like that in Australia?
That's a good question. See, I've quoted the Charter of Human Rights many times, and before the whole period that came into place, before that, occasionally they did honour those rights and they did respect that. But yeah, during the last 2.5 years, we've seen those rights trampled on. They've even said, "Don't give me that," and then they go back to their rhetoric. Papers. Where are you traveling to? Identification, or the threat of arrest comes into the picture. So yes, it just goes to show, and we see the violence in the eyes of many of these officers. Even when you're doing the right thing, you stand up for your rights, we just see mass violations of that. And we have seen court cases put before the magistrate, and people pleading not guilty and trying to counteract some of the malicious prosecutions that we've seen.
So is all this still ongoing? Are there still like protests and these things happening, like in the streets of y'all's like cities over there?
Now, things have settled down significantly. Previously, there were weekend protests. There are still many gatherings taking place, protests, people getting together and forming groups and committees and trying to organise campaigns for the future. The next threat that looks like it will emerge will be the social credit scores. that are looking to be implemented. The use of technology as a weapon. We've seen the track and trace measures, the scanning of QR codes. They're trying to eliminate the use of cash as a way of controlling people. So that is a mechanism that's being implemented now. When you go to a supermarket, we see a lot of self-service registers that are card only. So yes, once they control people in that digital mainframe, then they can lock people out.
Yeah, you're right. The more technology we get, it is kind of scarier because the government's in charge of all of it. So I'm pretty sure you've heard about the chips, right? Like in the hand for like being a form of like currency and possibly store medical records, all that sort of stuff. Man, what do you think about that shit, dude?
Absolutely. Artificial intelligence, the microchip implants. I actually interviewed a victim over 4 years ago that was implanted with a foreign device like that. And it's very frightening. It starts off with the handheld devices, the iPhones, and then the wearables with the Apple smartwatch and the Google glasses. And when people become familiar with that technology, that's when they start to advertise some of the implantable devices. And we even see Elon Musk with the Neuralink trying to get people on board with that.
Yep.
And we can see the marketing campaigns that they're using. People are stating that they feel much safer now that their family has been implanted because they can be geographically monitored and the GPS tracking, they know where they are at all times. They try and make it a smart and sophisticated option and a real opportunity for people. But yes, it's very deceptive, and it's always been stated, even in the spiritual handbook, beware of the mark of the beast.
Bro, you ever get to, I know when I get to think about a lot of stuff like this, man, it just makes me feel like I want to like buy me a piece of land with a cabin way, way out in the middle of the woods in the mountains or something like that and be completely secluded. Do you ever get that?
That's a really good question, and that's a viable alternative for many. I often get recognized, and some people state, look, I watched your show, I've seen the podcast, and I'm in a state of fear, and I'm concerned for my family and loved ones. What do I do? What do I do? They're looking for a solution.
Right.
And I always quite often tell them, look, purchase an RV, a camper van, and as an option, or even looking at purchasing some land, becoming self-sufficient, off-grid living, starting up small communities where people bring their own skill sets to the table as well. Someone might be good at cooking and starting up, those little communes where people.
I definitely do my fair share of prepping in certain area. Well, hell, I mean, it's not a lot. I mean, I rent a place, in a, populated area, but I've got like probably a couple 100 pounds of beans and rice and like oats and shit. Like I got shit to like survival gear. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a crazy level, but I mean, some people might look at it and say so. I don't know.
That's very wise to be prepared in these uncertain times. When food shortages hit, you'll know that you can survive, which is a tremendous relief and very critical. We've seen the agricultural industry be impacted here due to some of the weather events that have occurred, and we've even seen the price of lettuce go up to $11. So, we can definitely see the produce.
Like iceberg lettuce, or are we talking about like some romaine or some?
Exactly. And many restaurants had to switch to cabbage. That's what we've seen. So, there's a lot of weather events that we've seen here. We've suffered a lot of flooding, and that definitely had an impact, as well as droughts and fires. And there's many reports that a lot of this is weather manipulation the government has implemented as well, with the use of cloud seeding, and other nefarious tactics. Weather modification has been a huge problem here in Australia that I've been fortunate to cover on the show with some experts. So when those weather events hit and those disasters occur, it's smart to know that you can take care of your family.
Wow. So what's the laws? I mean, the best I remember, um, in Australia, the citizens do not have the right to own firearms. Is that
Correct.
accurate? Or
That's correct.
like,
Yes.
of any sort?
It's very much restricted. It's the right to bear arms, yes, and it's a very sad state of affairs in that regard, where people can't have a firearm in their home. They have to go through so many rigorous, so much red tape involved in that. It's definitely not like the States, which leaves people, in another sense of danger. And that's like an old statement as well. The first way to take over a country is to disarm its citizens. And they've quite effectively done that here in Australia.
Hmm. Wow. Hmm. Yeah, that's like kind of a tough one for me, man. I mean, being a tough one, when I say a tough one, it's because I firmly believe in the right to bear arms, and it
So do I.
just the one thing that I know about the government is that, and I mean, we all know this. It's not a secret. They lie to us. They steal from us. They they cannot be trusted. I mean, and I don't care what side you're on, if you're right or the left. You know they're full of shit. You know they get rich doing what they do, and they make their decisions based on the money that they make and not for the well-being of the people. So why would you let those people disarm you? That can't happen, man. You know?
Yes, it's a very scary predicament. And yes, the overbearing tactics, that's why the government is more brazen when it comes to the implementation of these restrictions, and setting up checkpoints is what we've seen here. I covered on the show military style checkpoints where people would be stopped. They'd have all their documentation requested, and they'd be checked to see whether they're in their radius or whether they're out of their zones. So yeah, it's unrelenting.
So
The tactics that were implemented.
when you go into like a city anywhere, you say you're in Victoria, is that where you're at?
Yeah, that's the state of
Australia?
Victoria here in Australia. Yes.
Okay. So when you go like into the city around there in public places, like what do you see? Like, can you see the evidence economically, like say in a grocery store, whenever you walk in, the food on the shelves, the gas prices, like what is that like every day? What do you see in that regard?
Good question. We've seen the collapse of small to medium businesses and the
Mhm.
redistribution of wealth to some of the major corporations.
Government
So
always thinks they can they know best with your money.
exactly
Isn't
right.
that
So we had
nice?
Kmart, stores like Kmart open to the public, and liquor stores, and other fast food outlets like McDonald's, but a lot of small shops, a lot of them had to close, and the capacity of patrons and customers that they could have in their store was limited due to the social distancing factors. So
Sure.
for many businesses, it wasn't viable to stay open. And yeah, we've seen the collapse of that. And a lot of the tyranny was passed on to the consumer, unfortunately, with the use of the sign-ins, the scanning, and everything else that was involved. Unfortunately, a lot of people were too worried and afraid to leave their homes, especially in the starting phase of this whole operation that was used. For the first 6 months, a lot of people just stayed indoors, just
Sure.
to try and keep this worry and danger at bay.
Wow. So you said that you have been arrested. You caught some charges. I think you even said you got hit with some of the rubber rounds or what? The rubber bullets?
I wasn't physically hit, but I was definitely shot at.
Shot at?
And that's right.
Okay.
I was up on 8 charges. I've had 6 charges dropped, and I'm hoping to get the last 2 charges dropped. I was charged twice for the same alleged offence. The prosecutor states that that was a typo, so I'm sure that will be dropped. And I'm in the
Okay.
process of accumulating even more evidence that will be able to shut down their whole case. So
So that just happened at like one of the protests or what? Like what
the
led up
six,
to that happening?
yes, the 6 charges that accumulated were during the protests that I was filming, and I'm up on 2 more charges. That's a duplicate for impersonation of a government official, which is all false and misleading. They've
What?
fabricated certain information to suggest that I was impersonating a TGA official, which is far from it. There was no badge, no uniform, no direct statement claiming to be from any government body. So yeah, they go to enormous lengths to try and silence anybody that exposes corruption. But so
Sure.
far, I have been victorious, and I remain confident. So I've maintained my innocence from day one, and will continue to do so.
Cool. Yeah, man, you gotta always be cautious. Anytime you see someone trying to silence anybody, especially an oppressor, a such a such a powerful group of individuals whenever they try to silence people, especially the average people. And the thing is, everything is kind of set up to where most people can't break the average, chain. You know what I mean? We're kind of like stuck in a real hard financial. Like I'm probably would consider myself to be like middle, maybe even still lower middle. I don't know, but really, it's really tough to make it, man. Like it's really set up to where certain people are set up to succeed,
Yes.
and most people are just not. And those people also don't get heard. Their voices they can be silenced.
That's exactly right. And we see the divide and conquer measures put in place where they psychologically control people with this form of warfare, trying to turn families against one another. The media plays a huge component in that, and
Yes, it
the
does.
relentless broadcasting of propaganda, trying to
Sure.
divide families on Christmas, we've even
Yeah.
seen. So a
Yeah.
lot of people are reluctant to turn up to festivities this year because of some of the backlash that they might receive for various viewpoints that might go against the government rhetoric that we've seen. Especially, people have a few drinks on Christmas, they start to speak their mind, and that can become a very hostile situation.
So, is liquor still legal over there?
Yes, yeah, liquor stores are always thriving here in Australia.
Yeah, yeah, probably to put up with all the bullshit, man.
Yeah. And we've seen
Yeah,
that
bro.
too. Many people resort to drinking copious amounts of
Sure.
liquor to try and numb the pain.
And that's where the mental health, it is a real thing. It is a real struggle. Keeping people locked indoors and people losing their businesses that it took years to build and grow. People losing their jobs, their careers. And then families breaking up. It definitely, the COVID thing, it took a major toll on mental health here in the States as well. Yeah, that's a big issue. And hell, even I've suffered from it. I have like anxiety, and man, I mean, I could go into talking about that all day, but it's a real thing nowadays. The world that we're living in and everything, like you said, the programming that we get fed all day through the media, the social media. Uh, it takes it takes a lot out of you, man. It programs you to be less happy, more dependent, and just weaker. It's a real thing. I believe it's a real thing.
Yes, that's why shows like this and other podcasts and various media that broadcasts messages of truth, that
Hmm.
instills a level of hope in a lot of the viewers and comfort as well in times of need when they can look at people in the truth community that show strength, courage, and provide valuable information. That is reassuring and very positive, and provides people a lifeline as well. And
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
very
Kind of. I
important.
mean, you got to do something to give the people a little bit of their voice back.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And sometimes, unfortunately, often nowadays, the people will do that. It's good. It's a good thing. Sometimes it could be messy, but I mean, the people have to be heard. You know. So I think our time is about to run out for recording. And
I thank you very much, Michael, for
yes,
bringing
sir,
these.
I thank you. This is really great, and I would
Good on you
definitely
for
maybe we ought
bringing.
to do it sometime. We'll talk more about go a little more in depth. You know
I
what I mean?
appreciate you bringing these questions forward and being able to provide the updates on what's going on here in Australia and being able to broadcast that so people can get a better understanding of just some of the trials and tribulations and challenges that we're experiencing here.
And I'm pretty sure we just covered a very small portion of it.
Yes,
So I definitely that's why I definitely want to. We should do this again, and we should talk more about some of these issues because there's a lot to cover. You know, there really is.
terrific, Michael. Well, all the best with everything you're doing. I hope you
Yes,
keep
sir, brother.
reaching more and more people, and all the best for the future.
Good luck over there, man. Okay, stay
Thank you.
safe, brother.
Well, that does it for today's show. As mentioned, I'll be going through your interview requests, folks. So if you'd like to send through some of the subject matter in which you would like to discuss, emails can be submitted to We Are Change Melbourne. That's at wacmelbourne@gmail.com. But for now, I'll catch you next time on the We Are Change Talk Show, where we expose corruption one episode at a time. Thank you. Be sure to like, share and subscribe.